It is often stated that Colombo captain Dominick Mimi Scialo was murdered after he drunkenly insulted crime boss Carlo Gambino in a Brooklyn restaurant. But was this really the case? Let's check it out. Welcome to OC Shorts, bringing you detailed historical snapshots of the American Mafia and other organised crime. Feel free to subscribe if you like that sort of thing. Today, we're going to take a quick look at the murder of the greatly feared Colombo crime family captain Dominick Mimi Scialo. In the latter part of 1973, it is said that Colombo crime family captain Dominick Mimi Scialo was drunk in Gargiulo's restaurant in Brooklyn when he spotted Carlo Gambino, the boss of the crime family that still bears his name. For some unknown reason, in his drunken state, Scialo, the greatly feared Colombo mobster, allegedly became aggressive and abusive to the famous crime boss. What exactly Mimi Scialo said to Carlo Gambino is unclear, with some sources reporting that it was something along the lines of, "You fucking old man, who do you think you are?" Others, such as former Mafia associate Joey Cantalupo, would state that Mimi Scialo called Carlo Gambino a jerk, as seen in the following interview.
But Mimi had a terrible problem. He liked to drink. And when he drank, he didn't care who the fuck you were. You could have been Carlo Gambino. And if you walked into the restaurant where he was at and he didn't like the way you looked, he says, "Hey, he looked like a jerk, Carl." But he was drunk. The liquor was talking for him. And this was a situation that actually happened. In a restaurant in Coney Island, Carl walked into, and who's there falling on his face? But Mimi. Now, Mimi has his own crew, 20, 30 men who work for him. And because he insulted Carl, it was decided that this man has no respect. Respect is a big thing. And he had to eventually die.
Regardless of what exactly the drunken and aggressive Dominick Scialo said to Carlo Gambino, reports suggest that the crime boss didn't react to the insults and even tried to calm the clearly inebriated Scialo down. After the Gambino incident, there were allegedly rumours on the street that Dominick Scialo was a dead man walking. And a few weeks later, in January 1974, Dominick Scialo disappeared and was never seen alive again. In October 1974, the remains of Colombo crime family captain Dominick Mimi Scialo were found buried in the cellar of Otto's Social and Athletic Club on President Street. As one newspaper reported, FBI agents and police questioned scores of mafia hoods yesterday in an effort to find the slayers of mob boss Dominick Mimi Scialo and another unidentified victim whose bodies were found buried in the basement of a South Brooklyn social club. Both had been shot in the back of the head in gangland execution style, police said. The victims were discovered late Wednesday night by FBI agents acting on a tip that the body of Scialo, a Joseph Colombo Mafia family captain, was buried in the cellar of Otto's Social and Athletic Club, 494 President Street. The club is a hangout for Colombo mobsters, according to cops. It is often stated that Colombo mobster and long-time active informant Greg Scarpa provided the information as to the whereabouts of Scialo's body. Interestingly, the FBI cited a conversation that was heard in Otto's social club discussing the location of Scialo's corpse. As one newspaper reported, the FBI noted in the search affidavit that it had received information on February 2nd Scialo had been murdered and then buried by The Undertaker. The court paper cited a conversation that allegedly was held in the social club earlier this week. One of the men in Otto's mentioned Scialo's name. "You know Scialo is buried in the cellar of the club," said another man. "Yeah," said the first. "It bugs me every time I have to go into the cellar to get something." An expensive gold wristwatch and band was still on the body, as was a gold St. Anthony's medal. No cash or identification was found on the body or in the bag. Late yesterday, Assistant Medical Examiner Milton Wald said Scialo had been shot once behind the left ear. Typical execution style, noted the doctor. So, what do we know about Dominick Scialo? Dominick Mimi Scialo had been a powerful Colombo crime family captain who was dubbed the King of Coney Island. He had come up as a soldier in the crew of Colombo Captain John Sonny Franzese. Mimi Scialo was a feared mobster who was a suspect in several homicides. One FBI file states that it was Mimi Scialo who oversaw the attempted hit on Larry Gallo in 1961, although Scialo was not present at the time of the strangulation. The file also outlines the time when Mimi Scialo was on the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list in 1958. The file reads, reportedly in charge of the strangling, although not on the premises at the time, was Mimi Anthony Dominick Scialo, another member of the Profaci family. 3 years earlier, Scialo had been indicted for the brutal gangland slaying of a young hoodlum and his teenage associate, as a result of which he was added to the Bureau's top 10 wanted list in May 1958. After spending more than a year in a fugitive status, Scialo surrendered to the Kings County District Attorney's Office on July 27, 1959, and shortly thereafter it was announced that the prosecution against him had been dropped because of insufficient evidence. At times in the late 1960s, Mimi Scialo had acted as acting captain for Sonny Franzese. And then, in 1973, Dominick Mimi Scialo became captain of his own crew. Members of this crew would include the likes of Robert Barberi, Paul D'Amico, former Profaci family captain Harry Fontana, Philip Fontana, Lawrence Lampazzi Jr., Frankie the Sheikh Musacchio, Salvatore Peritore, and Michael Savino, among several others. Scialo's crew also included a large number of associates who were loyal to him. They included the likes of future Colombo soldier Frank Beansy Melli, Gaetano Tommy Barbusca, John Coiro, Frankie the Beast Falanger, and Harry Jr. Maguire. It is reported that Dominick Mimi Scialo was popular with the majority of his crew and respected by other mobsters. However, when Scialo was drunk, he was brash, loud, abusive, and violent. As mentioned earlier, it is often said that it was this drunken behaviour that led to Scialo insulting crime boss Carlo Gambino, which ultimately led to Scialo being murdered. However, it appears that Dominick Scialo was actually murdered for several other reasons, which we will explore now. After the shooting of family boss Joseph Colombo in 1971, the Persico faction emerged as the dominant faction of the crime family. In the early 1970s, Carmine Persico would go to prison, but many say that he still pulled the strings in the crime family, despite the boss at the time being Thomas DiBella. Carmine's brother Alphonse would become the family's consigliere. Dominick Scialo was a powerful captain, and it is stated that the Persico faction feared that he could make a move to take over the family, as seen in the following FBI file, based on information provided by Greg Scarpa about Alphonse Persico and his brother Carmine. The file states, informant advised he recently learned that Persico had become enraged over the fact that Mimi Scialo apparently has recruited 4 young tough guys who Scialo has been using for his dirty work. Allegedly, Scialo has refused to reveal the identities of these individuals to the family, and Persico suspects that possibly Scialo, after Persico's conviction and return to prison, may attempt to take over the Colombo family. The fact that Dominick Scialo was deemed a threat to the Persico faction could be motive enough to have him murdered. There is also information provided by Greg Scarpa that states that older members of the Colombo family were concerned about psychiatric treatment that they were aware that Scialo was receiving. In this same FBI file, Scarpa talks about what can be potentially deemed the main reason why Dominick Mimi Scialo was murdered: the unauthorized attempted hit on Colombo soldier Lawrence Larry Lampazzi. The FBI file states, on January 29, 1974, source advised that the word on the street is that Mimi Scialo was hit because he had become a liability to the family. Source advised on January 29, 1974, that the older men of the family were aware that Scialo was undergoing psychiatric treatment, and they felt that he was too unpredictable. In addition, Scialo personally killed an individual named Miguel Cosmos, one of Larry Lampazzi's bookmakers, whom Lampazzi was to kill himself. When Lampazzi complained, Scialo shot him. After Lampazzi's shooting, Harry Fontana put a contract out to the Persico crew to hit Scialo. The Harry Fontana mentioned in the FBI file had previously been a captain when Joseph Perfacci was the family boss, and his views were still respected. The excellent website LCN Bios provides further information on the Larry Lampazzi situation and the involvement of Dominick Scialo and his crew of loyal associates. The website states, the crew is also suspected of having carried out several unsanctioned hits on Scialo's behalf, including the December 10, 1973 murder of 33-year-old bookmaker Miguel Cosmo at a Coney Island social club. 2 ski-masked gunmen lined the patrons up, singled out Cosme and opened fire, killing him with 2 shots to the back and 1 to the head. The victim was on record with Colombo soldier Lawrence Lampazzi, a member of Scialo's crew, but Lampazzi was not consulted beforehand. He lodged a complaint with Colombo leadership. 3 days later, Lampazzi was at a Brooklyn barbershop when a ski-masked gunman entered and shot him once in the chest. He was taken to Coney Island Hospital for treatment. Interestingly, one newspaper in 1974 mentioned that Carlo Gambino was not happy that Larry Lampazzi had been shot. The newspaper reported, Lampazzi, though shot twice in the face, survived, and his shooting signalled the end for Scialo, according to sources. Lampazzi is closely connected with personal mob friends of Mafia superdon Carlo Gambino. The old man, said mob watchers, didn't like Lampazzi being shot. And so, in January 1974, Dominick Mimi Scialo disappeared. It is often stated that the contract to kill Mimi Scialo was handled by feared Colombo mobster Charles Charlie Moose Panarella or one of his men. Some state that Joseph Brancato was also involved. Ultimately, it appears that the unauthorized hit attempt on Larry Lampazzi was the final nail in Dominick Mimi Scialo's coffin, after numerous transgressions by the Coney Island-based captain, as confirmed by Greg Scarpa to the FBI in February 1974. The FBI file reads, on January 31 and February 6, 1974, source was contacted regarding the recent turmoil and possible new developments in the Colombo family with regards to leadership changes. Source stated that Mimi Scialo was definitely killed on a contract given by Harry Fontana, and the OK was given by Carmine Persico. Details were furnished in a prior contact with source reported earlier. Informant commented that the Lampazzi incident was merely the straw which broke the camel's back. That other families, notably Carlo Gambino and Funzi Tieri, had complained about Scialo's attitude and past activities also. Let me know your thoughts on the Dominick Scialo murder in the comments below. I hope you found that interesting. Thanks for watching.